Welcome into the lounge presented by DraftKings. We have the pleasure of being joined by Director of Player Personnel, George Kokinis. George, let's start out talking about the draft. What are your emotions right now at this stage of the draft process?
Well, definitely excited. I think we just came off the most fun set of meetings because the coaches are involved in this round. Yeah. All the information's here. The pro days are all in. So you have all the information. So now it's a matter of hearing the coaches' evaluations and then matching the talent with what the scheme is and see if we can get a fit.
Right.
Yeah. I'm curious to try to get a perspective of what it's like inside that room as you guys go through those meetings and you sit down with scouts, and it's basically the culmination of a year, sometimes year plus of work. So what are those meetings like when you all get into that room and you hash it out and build that board?
Well, the February meetings are probably the more of the grind type because of all the names that you have, all the information that the area scouts have, all the projected numbers from like what their strength coaches. So you have to take that into consideration. So you're going in and evaluating these players and you have a 4.40 by their strength coach. And then the guy goes to India and runs a 4.60. Mm-hmm. So then an evaluator has to kind of distinguish in those set of meetings, like, am I seeing the speed on tape or am I not seeing the speed on tape, regardless of the numbers that he borrowed? So grinding through and figure out that takes some time. These set of meetings, like I said, they're great. Like you really, you're weeding out the kind of guys that fit us. You have more looks. You have all-star games. So it's just a complete evaluation, and then you just see, like I said, just see who fits what we do.
And at what point does the board get finalized that you're like, we're done, we feel good about where everything's ranked? And is it a literal 1 through whatever 250 ranking? Like, does it look like that?
What time's the draft start on Thursday?
Little tweaks.
Listen, Eric.
Sounds like you with your mock drafts.
That is me. That's the king of the tweaks.
I mean, he's the master, really. In terms of how we look at the board, I think will be pretty much set. We have 2 more meetings, Monday and Tuesday of next week. Mm-hmm. Any final things, any last minute medical information that we have. There might be maybe a switch of a guy in a category. Mm-hmm. Or a coach looked at it and, I think this just fits a little bit better. We might just flip that guy. I don't think there's going to be any major changes unless it's a medical thing.
Yeah.
But, Eric's got his list. We've been working at it, for 9 months, 10 months. Area guys, 3 years on some guys, so, it's getting close.
Yeah, I'm going back to the meetings. Like you've been in these meetings, every year, and when you hear about the conversations of guys like standing on the table, advocating, whether it's a coach, whether it's a scout, what does that happen? Like, does that actually happen? And are there any instances that, like, as you think back over your time here, that really stand out to you? Is like, I remember this guy really wanted this player, and he made the case. We ended up drafting him. Any stories that stand out to you? In that
now I just have images of somebody literally standing on the table.
Standing on the table.
Did that happened. Yeah, George is literally up on the table.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I need to stand on the table just so people can see.
Wow. All right.
No, I think every draft room probably has a Tom Brady story, but Matt Cavanaugh in 2000, I do remember that. He was like, I don't know where you take him. It's not really my, I don't know the whole draft. I don't know where you take a guy like this, but we need to take this guy. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure every coach, every scout said they had Tom Brady graded higher.
Yeah.
But that actually did happen.
Yeah. Interesting.
I think Suggs was one. I know Eric he loves Suggs. And that was 2003,
yep.
right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, he'd go in Ozzy. He's like, oh, I love this guy. And this was during the draft process. And Ozzy'd be like, no, we're not going to get him. We're not going to get him. And then So Suggs ran his pro day. He got his pro day. We were in like 4.86, 4.85. And like Eric just like slammed the table, screamed. He's like, yes. Like ran into Ozzy's office and we got him.
That's awesome.
That's
Just because
amazing.
he ran a little bit slower over time.
Yeah. that's
Speaking
awesome.
of draft stories, can you recount the story of picking Lamar and just the stampede that went on upstairs and how that all went about?
Yeah, I think, obviously everybody evaluated him going in. Not every single person, but the area guys, the national guys, the coaches, Eric, Ozzy, all those, everybody. I think as the draft got going, I think it really was Steve kind of initiated it. Hey, we really need to take another look at this. Like, not like to change our minds because we had good grades. But it's just like, I want everybody evaluating him. So we all took the time. Everybody evaluated him, talked to Eric about it, talked to Ozzy about it. And so we went into that draft with a little bit more of kind of what did everybody feel about this? Like, it's a major decision. The quarterback position, it's pivotal in the league. It's pivotal when you pick them in the first round.
Right.
It could set or hurt your franchise. And so I think Steve just wanted everybody on board with that pick. And then as the draft went, Eric and Ozzy were kind of true to the process. Like they had guys ranked at a certain spot. We picked Hayden. And then I think Steve was sitting at the end of the table, kind of had his arms crossed. He was starting to get locked in a little bit. I think he turned to Eric and Ozzy and be like, is there any way we can get back up here? And they pulled it off. And
Wow.
The rest is history.
I mean, that had to be a moment in that. I remember being down here just watching it and realizing, I mean, obviously you have Joe, you have Super Bowl winner, Super Bowl MVP. And then you're like, wow, like this is a turning point in our franchise. And then he's a 2-time MVP now and it's even bigger than it felt in the moment. But were the emotions in that, what were the emotions like in that room when that pick was made?
Well, I think, when the order came in for everybody to look at them, I think this is not that it's never for real,
right?
But, I mean, when the head man says, hey, we want everybody looking at them, we knew the importance of it. And then sort of when the plan kind of came to fruition, I mean, there was just a lot of excitement. I mean, because you knew the impact of not only the position, but of that player and what he could be.
Yeah.
And what he can be. So, getting, 2 picks in that round and getting him was awesome.
Yeah. I mean, the last question on that, were you, after you take Hayden, were you thinking, all right, like we're done? Or was it kind of like, are you looking down at that end of the table saying like, okay, so are you guys going to is this going to happen here? Like, what were you actually thinking? Like the Hayden pick's done, everyone celebrates, you're high fiving. And then I know Harbaugh has told the story, like some coaches left the room and it's like, what were you kind of thinking in that moment before obviously the trade up to go get him?
Yeah, I think, as I recall, you look at the board, you kind of figure out, okay, who's going to be there the next day, sort of thing. So you start going through your list and who's going to pick what. And then Steve didn't move.
Steve, we're done, right?
He was still very locked in. You're like, okay.
You sort of feel like, all right, something's brewing, So I didn't know what. Yeah. Because he's kind of down at that side, and he starts leaning over, and I'm like, okay, something's going down. So it was great.
That's good.
He was not moving, so I knew something could be up.
Yeah, it's funny. So fast forwarding to this year, just what are your general impressions of this draft class?
I like it. For scouts, like it's what we really want to do is just give our opinion, give recommendations, see what players can impact the team and help us win. Like that's really what we live for. So I think in every draft we kind of look at, each round, what's going to be there possibly and what we could target, what would make us a better football team and complement the guys that we have. So, I'm still getting all the names straight, Fasciano and Fatano and Fuaga, Fisher, Foster, Flax. I mean,
that's a good year to be an offensive tackle with the Fs.
There's an odds that could be an F, but I don't, it's good. The O-line's, strong. I think you can get something in every round. Wideouts are always a topic because there's so many variety of them.
Yeah.
There's, the Big X, and you got the Speedy Z and route running, slot receiver.
Yeah.
Then you got receivers that are returners, and then receivers that are special teamers. Mm-hmm. So there's going to be a variety of those players, and every team needs a certain thing and how it complements the players on their team. So receivers are always something that go.
Mm-hmm. Now, trade is always possible. We've seen that with Eric a couple of times. He's made a few trades in his time as GM, and certainly he always talks about accumulating picks and adding picks. You already got 9, which is a big collection. Walk us through the process and the potential of potentially trading, adding picks, or even going the other direction. You got 9. Eric has talked about how this class, there's not as many draftable players, and part maybe because of COVID, but just that process, the trade process of potentially moving back or going up if you feel like you like a guy.
Yeah. Well, the trade part of it's really not my expertise. I sit there and I try to evaluate. The trade is really Eric and Ozzy and Steve, Nick and Pat. I think when you look at trades, generally in the first round, if there's a clump of players that you like and you could move back and you would take those players and you can move back that certain number of spots. So if you have 5 players you like and you can move back that number and still get a player that you like, then you probably look at it. Mm-hmm. So I think in general, that's kind of what you do. I think certainly picks, the more swings you get, the more hits you're going to get, or the odds are that you're going to hit the ball. So certainly we, wouldn't mind that either. I think scouts love that, more players in their area, they can brag about, but more chance for them to impact the team.
I'm curious from a scouting perspective, there's so much more analytics in the game now. I can pull up next gen stats and see how fast Zay Flowers ran in the second quarter on this specific play and blah, 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 right? As an evaluator, how much more is that factored into your evaluations as compared to before? Do you feel like now it is a little bit more science than art of what it used to be?
I think we've probably always approached it that you have to marry the two, or you have to just, piece the puzzle together. Mm-hmm. I don't think one overshadows the other.
Yeah.
There's value in everything that we look at, whether it's talent, whether it's intangibles, whether it's background, medical, analytics, gut feel. Mm. You got to just piece it all together and get that picture. I think that's kind of what Eric, one of his strengths is really just kind of taking all that information in and being able to recall that. And then you have to make a call on game day. So on draft day. So there's a lot of info, but you got to just piece it all together.
What does stand out to you about Eric and how he operates this draft, and how has he changed? You two have been working together for a long time. How has that evolved? How has he changed?
I don't know if he's changed. He's good, right? So, I think first and foremost, he probably, he does his homework, right? So, I'm a little bit of a night owl, so I might shoot him a text like 12:30 or so, 1 o'clock, go to bed. 3:30 in the morning, I hear my phone ringing. He's grinding tape at 3:30.
Wow.
I'm like, son of a, I wasn't expecting a return to the 7 or 8.
So does that get you out of bed then when you get the 3:30 text?
No, not really.
Silent mode.
I think what sets him apart. So a buddy of mine was over my house the other day, and we were talking about successful coaches and CEOs, top business guys, and he turns to me. He turns to me and goes, are you a James Bond fan? I'm like, yeah. He's like, there's a movie for your eyes only, and there's this Greek smuggler. His name's Columbo, and he kidnaps James Bond.
Okay.
And he has him in his office in his yacht. And he says, "Mr. Bond, you have what the Greeks call thrasos, guts." And I think when you're sitting there and you got to make a call and you have all that information, you got to recall from the scouts, you have the pressure of the coaching staff, you have the pressure of the players, because they want you to add good players. Mm-hmm. The pressure of the city, trade calls coming in, people talking about who they want in the room, and you got to sit there and lock in and focus. I think that takes guts, and he's good at it.
That's great. James Bond. Yeah, he's more of a. Eric always talks about he's more of a not Sopranos. Godfather. He's Godfather guy, but maybe James Bond.
I'm not saying he's Bond. I mean, Pat Moriarty wants to be James Bond.
Okay.
Well, that's interesting that you say like people in the room talking about who they want. Like, is there kind of you have your board, right? But are there people who throw out a last minute lob like I kind of like this guy right now?
No, but I think when you're sitting there and trying to make that call, you might possibly like hear some whispers. I wish we, but
right.
He's locked in. He knows what he's doing.
Right.
I'm curious about whenever we're going through this process, and of course we do our mock draft, which I know you guys always print out and take very seriously. Those are the whispers that Eric's hearing, on draft on draft day. Those are the ones. But one of the things that we always talk about is like the story. And you guys have talked about kind of over the years, just the character of players, and you like guys who have overcome things, and the off the field stuff is important. And, there's plenty of examples of players who have overcome things and succeeded, and that can be an indicator of success. I am curious, like how much of a factor is that? Those intangibles, those off the field things, the overcoming of adversity, like how big of a factor is that when you're making these evaluations?
I think it's a huge factor. I think, the stories are not so much like, did a player rescue a cat from a tree? It's not like that, like a feel good kind of, okay.
We appreciate that in the media side.
Yeah. We got to take that guy. I think it is the stories of like what guys have overcome, like what adversity have they faced. If there's stories like that, and they've been through it, like they understand what it takes to get through something like that. Because, when you're in the NFL and you're early in your career, you're going to have kind of these waves and ups and downs, and even if you don't, you're going to have some distractions. And so having gone through something like that, or if you've had that in your background, I think it's important because you can kind of rely on, okay, what did I do before to pull this out? Mm-hmm. Like pull me from out of this. Mm-hmm. So I think players that can do that and compartmentalize and then focus on what the task at hand and know who to go to if they need support and rely, whether it's a coach, Dr. Trish, Eric, John, family member, mentor, whatever within the locker room or out, like if they know how to get through it, because everybody goes through something, and if they've been through it, they can get through it and do what they're capable of doing on the field. You
talked about what makes Eric great, and this is kind of the challenge of any NFL evaluator. In your years of doing this, if you had to distill it down, like what is it that makes a player succeed? That from
like a prospect
succeed. You put this grade out there, and some guys are first round picks and it doesn't pan out. Some guys are 7th round picks and are undrafted and they have great careers. And so what is it in your mind that allows a prospect to succeed at the next level?
Well, talent.
That's a big one.
The talent is huge. But there's a lot of talented players up here. So you're trying to figure out the ones that have talent that don't, and the ones that have talent, flourish. So, God, there's so many things.
Yeah.
I'd like what's hard about scouting is, you really don't know what you don't. How is a player going to react when he gets up here? That's why our area scouts are so valuable in terms of talking to so many people on what the player has done to get them through tough times or get them or put him where he is right now. Like, what does he face? Like, how does he practice? How is he on the sideline? But what you don't know about a player that is hard is how he's going to react when he gets up here.
Yeah.
He's not the best player in his room, perhaps. He's not the best player on the team. There's a million distractions out there. Maybe he's got a little money. How do you play with that? You got family members that, NFL, I want to come to the game. It's 50 tickets. There's so many stumbling blocks that a player has to be able to separate and be able to do, because it's hard. It's really hard to play this game, and it's hard to be really good at it, let alone great. I mean, we throw that word out a lot. Great, just God, be really good at it, and get better. Like, it's hard. And these guys have a lot of things to deal with, and then learning like a whole new language. Like, some guys never been in a huddle before. Like, how do you do that? So the hard thing is you just really don't know how a player is going to react when he gets up here.
Yeah.
You can see the talent. He's got the ability to do it. Why? Well, that's the $1 million question.
Right. How has this pre-draft process been different for you after Joe's departure to LA?
Well, you're not going to replace Joe Ortiz. He's such a good evaluator. He's so well connected within college football, in terms of he could pick up the phone, call any head coach, really. But I think, in saying that, I'm really proud. Like, our group, like they buckled it up. They knew he was leaving. They did the extra work. They went to extra pro days. They did the extra tape. They got extra information from sources. They doubled back. Okay, not only coordinators, position coaches, GAs, student assistant. Like, wow. They pressed the pedal a little bit. So I think it was good. Like I said before, Scout wants to impact the team to help us win. That's all they care about. That's all we care about. Titles. We just want this tean to win. That's important to us. Right.
So does the seating chart in the draft room change at all?
No, my wedding planning days are like far from now in terms of seating charts.
It's in your history.
Yeah, I got 3 younger kids, so we'll see on that. I'll be charting the seats at some point. But listen, if there's the way our mentality is if there's something to be done, it's going to get done. Whether you go do it or I do it, not Joe, but Mark Acevedo.
You're still referencing Joe. It's like you're still here.
Well, we have Joe Sedano.
Oh, okay.
And Joey Cleary.
Yes.
Right.
So, we're still
There's still plenty of Joes.
Yeah. Not regular Joes. These guys are good. So, but, all those guys upstairs, TJ and Travis, Terrell, if there's something to do, go do it or find a way to get it done.
Mm-hmm. Now, you talked a little bit about Steve and how he is in the Lamar story of draft weekend. Eric talked about the Bisciotti reign of terror at the pre-draft press conference, and where, you basically keep trading a future year's pick. You go from a 7th all the way up over the course of 7 years to go to a first-round pick. So what is he like in draft room? Is he basically always trying to make the Bisciotti reign of terror come into fruition?
Well, I'm not privileged to that plan. That's only for a very few. I'll say this: you could tell he loves it, right? So he studies it. He knows the players. He knows the type of players that we like. He knows the trade process. I mean, who knows value better than him? But he asks just poignant questions. He challenges you. He understands it. He makes you look at it from a different perspective. So he'll try to keep us loose, as we're 10 picks away. But then you see his competitiveness. Like, he locks in now. As it gets like everybody else, like when it gets to 5 picks away and you're starting to narrow it down and the phones are ringing and we're putting up the trades possibilities, and his wheels are turning. Like, he locks in just as much as we do. So it's kind of cool.
That's interesting. The last question for me, George, obviously with Lamar's contract escalating, him eating up a bigger piece of the pie, the draft is going to have more and more importance, right? We got to keep hitting these picks, restocking with young, cheap talent, right? Do you guys look at these drafts? Of course, there's a million reasons why every draft is very important, but do you, with Lamar's contract situation, look at each of these drafts and say, like, all right, these we have to nail these if we're going to continue to remain as competitive as we have been?
Yeah, I mean, regardless of contracts, no contracts, quarterback contract, quarterback on a rookie deal, I think you just, every year you try to build it within the parameters that you have. Mm-hmm. So, we play to win. So I don't think we overanalyze like how we're going to go replace or whatnot. I think because this year's team, if you look at this year's team, one of the biggest reasons why it was successful is because we had great depth.
Yeah.
So it's not like, okay, we're going to replace this player in a couple of years, so we got to pick this player, this position. Like, you just want to create as much depth as you can each and every year, because we expect to win each and every year here. So, you look at this year, the guys we added, Ronald Darby and Simpson stepped up to be a starter, and Van Noy and Clowney. We had tremendous depth. And then you look at somebody like Patrick McCarry. The guy can start. He can play every position. Mm-hmm. And how many teams can say that to go in and play winning football at all 5 positions? Like, that's rare. So the depth that we have. So I think, to answer your question, when you look at the draft, like, where can we build at? Like, obviously everybody looks at the first round, impact player, blah, blah, blah. But really, it's like, we have good players on this team, and where can we complement with what's in the draft?
Right. Very
awesome.
cool.
Well, I can't wait to see what you have in store this week. It's going to be a lot of fun. So thank you so much for the time, and good luck.
Thank you, George.
Man. You're listening to the Lounge Podcast. We're coming to you from the SeatGeek studio. We also want to give a shout out to our friends at DraftKings Sportsbook. They're an official sports betting partner of the Baltimore Ravens. They've got a limited time offer running right now that you don't want to miss. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today. Use the promo code FLOCK. If you are a new user, you can get a deposit bonus up to $1,000. Again, that promo code is FLOCK only at DraftKings. You need to be 21 years or older and physically present in Maryland to play. For help, visit mdgamblinghelp.org or call 1-800-GAMBLER. So really enjoyed the conversation with George. I think, it's fun to hear stories. The story of drafting Lamar is a great one. And it's fun to look back on, like, a pivotal moment, a turning point in Ravens history.
Yeah, for sure. I really like that story. I liked his story about Eric DeCosta, describing the whole Bond thing was good. Yeah, George is great. He's a little different from Joe Ortiz, who we've interviewed many times leading into the draft. And one big difference between him, just so viewers and listeners know, is he does not talk about any individual prospects. So if you're wondering, why aren't you asking him about his take on Amarius Mims and the other tackles, George don't play that game, and which is totally fine. That's his choice. He just operates a little differently from Joe, but a super respected longtime scout. George is he's given his take on players, whether it be free agents, the draft prospects, all that stuff for a long time, and he's been a key part of why the Ravens have had so much success keeping that pipeline stocked with talent and have been so successful over the years.
Yeah, George is really influential in the overall process in the personnel department. This is draft focused, but George is also pivotal on the pro side as well. So when the Ravens have guys like Ronald Darby and Jadeveon Clowney and Kyle Van Noy and Arthur Mollett who come in here and have a lot of success, George is highly, highly involved in that process of bringing that pro scouting piece, which is a pivotal piece of the equation too. So
I thought it was interesting. Who else is very influential is Steve Bisciotti.
Yeah, he is very influential. Very influential.
Yeah, especially on the draft. You talk about culture right? And why the Ravens are so successful. And I think a lot of that is because they draft so well. They, like I said, keep that pipeline stocked. And a lot of that, I think, stems from Steve Bisciotti, right? And his vision for how important the draft is to this organization and his involvement in it, not only in the room and kind of being their trades guru, right? Like when you see the Ravens trade on draft day, which, to parrot Daniel Jeremiah from last year, I'd be surprised if they didn't make a single trade on draft day. When you see that, Steve Bisciotti was probably speaking up when that happened.
Very in the mix on this.
Very in the mix. And I thought even from the Lamar story of him being like, you know what, I want everybody to double back on this guy.
Yeah.
And that kind of cueing everybody like, oh, we might take a first-round quarterback here. Like, this is going to happen, right? And so it's really interesting to see his involvement and how key he views the draft as being to the Ravens' success.
I just think it's funny, too, that George tells the story of, you knew something was up when you didn't see Steve get up from the table.
Exactly.
Like everyone's like high five, and it's like, okay, all right, good first round, guys. And it's like, wait, we're not done here. Okay, all right, let me settle back in here and see where this thing goes.
Yep, very cool.
So the draft is it's this week. It's coming up in a few days, and we are going to be breaking down kind of everything over the course of this week to give you our final take.
We're going daily.
We are we're going to do some big questions, some of the big questions, and break down those. That episode is going to be coming out tomorrow and on Wednesday. Okay,
I have kind of a surprise waiting in the wings for that.
All right.
A prediction surprise for you guys.
I'm sure you're going to do 20 different predictions, and then
no.
If this prediction comes true, then you can just throw as much stuff up against the wall and see what sticks. But then on Wednesday, we're going to do our full 7-round mock draft. Okay, so look forward to that. And actually on Thursday, during the first round of the draft, we're going to do a live episode of the podcast from Reckless Shepherd Brewing, which is where we're hosting a PSL event for some PSL owners for our draft party. It's an event only for those PSL owners who are going to be there, but you'll be able to watch the podcast. All right, so we're going to do a live episode that's going to be around 7:30 Thursday night. Just set the table for draft coverage. So you're getting ready for draft coverage. You eat dinner, put on the lounge, get kind of the table set, and then you can go into watching your draft coverage throughout Thursday night.
Our predictions get even better when you mix a brewery in there.
Yeah, it's brewery. Exactly.
That's when it comes all together.
It's a perfect convergence right there. So you'll be able to watch that on our app, our site, as well as our YouTube channel on Thursday. So it's going to be a busy week. I mean, this is what it's all exciting. This is what we do it for. And so draft week is here. As always, you can email us at thelounge@ravens.nfl.net. Thank you so much for watching and for listening, and we'll talk with you again later this week.